I am Anna Seewald, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about personal development in the context of parenting, where I explore how you can find more calm, connection, and joy in parenting through the process of self-discovery and inner growth with a trauma-informed lens. If you're new to the show, welcome. On this podcast, we usually have interviews, on-air coaching calls, some solo episodes, and what I call special episodes, where I am joined by my dear friend and colleague, Laura Froyen from Wisconsin. And this is that episode. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Anna. So glad to be back with you again. I'm Dr. Laura Froyen. I have my PhD in Human Development and Family Studies with a specialization in couple and family therapy. And I help parents find more peace and connection and joy in their parenting roles and more balance for their family as a whole.
I think I almost never mention who I am and what I do because I feel like my listeners, my long-time loyal listeners know about me, but of course the new listeners perhaps don't know. I'm a parent educator, creator of the Authentic Parenting, which is an online community, a podcast, and my private practice here in New Jersey. I work with parents from all walks of life. I am an author, speaker, and mom to a moody 11-year-old girl. And we have some questions today about pre-adolescent moody children. So Laura, why don't you tell our listeners the 3 segments that we have on this episode?
Sure. So on the special episodes, we usually start off with telling some stories from our lives that let you know that we are, even though we are professionals and parent educators, that we are exactly like you. Then we go through some listener questions and answer some questions that you guys submit. And then we usually end up by sharing some of our favorite resources for supporting you in more peaceful, connected, and authentic parenting.
Yes. So for our first segment, do you have any stories for us?
I do. So this one happened just a couple days ago. My 4-year-old has been so I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. And normally my stories are about my 7-year-old, who is a little bit more of a difficult temperament kiddo. This one's about my 4-year-old. So she came downstairs for breakfast, and I looked at the muffins that we had put out on her plate, and some of the muffin tins the muffin liners that I use are flower shaped, and some of them are just plain circles. And she happened through the luck of the draw to get one of the plain ones this morning, and her sister got one of the flower shaped ones. And she was very disappointed about not having a flower shaped muffin for breakfast. She expressed her displeasure and in disappointment very well to us. We were very clear that she was disappointed. But before I could say anything, my husband said to her, "Honey, I'm sorry. I just reached in and grabbed some and I didn't look at them. But this is what you have." And just kind of put it out there. And she is a really sensitive, emotionally sensitive kid. And if I had been the one to say it, I probably would have empathized with her first and validated that she was disappointed. And that's really hard when you're expecting something and then you don't get it exactly the way you were expecting it, and spend some time validating. But I didn't get to do that because, we don't parent in a vacuum, right? We parent with someone often. And my partner got the words out first. So she did not like that. And she took the muffin and threw it across the kitchen and it broke into pieces. And that's when both me and my husband got triggered. We both felt you know how that feeling of red kind of comes over you when you're angry and you have all these stories going through your mind, like this ungrateful child, she doesn't know how lucky she is. How would she throw something that I worked so hard to make for her? all those stories that, of course, is not really what's going on. Those are stories in our heads from our own experiences as children that kind of come up that we have to do a good job of regulating and, invalidating within us and soothing within us so that we can respond well. In that moment, though, my husband and I both needed a break before we addressed this with her. And she had stomped off and gone up to her room to be alone, to cry about how disappointed she was. And so we went up to her and made up with her and explained, that it's not okay to throw the food, that when she's disappointed by something, we're here to help her and we can always make a plan and work it out. And then we worked together and solved the problem. She helped clean up the muffin. We ended up she ended up getting another one because that one wasn't edible anymore. She did get a flower-shaped one, but she apologized and we practiced what she would do next time when she was disappointed. And my husband also practiced what he would say next time when she was disappointed. So it was it was a good experience overall. And I think I'm sharing it because this is not an uncommon circumstance for a 4-year-old. They're impulsive, they have big feelings, and those big feelings in them often trigger big feelings in us as adults. And my husband and I were very much at one point in a place of, well, she doesn't get another muffin. She can be hungry. She's going to throw her food. She can be hungry. These are things that were going through our heads. And it took time and conscious effort to calm ourselves down and reconnect to how we actually want to be with our child, and connect to the truth about our child. Because our child is not spoiled. She is not, she's not going to grow up thinking that if she doesn't want something, she can just throw it and that's okay. She knows that it wasn't okay. And she couldn't stop herself. If she could have stopped herself, she totally would have. But it took time and effort and intention to shift those negative stories in our heads that are the product of being raised in a conventional way so that we could be more intentional in our parenting of her. But so I guess I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. And it's sometimes we miss the point completely in those kind of situation, and we address, how dare you throw food? We grasp a little detail of the entire situation and we get sidetracked like that. Whereas it's not about throwing the food. When you're angry or disappointed as a 4-year-old whose brain is not fully developed, they're driven by emotions, right? To them, you serve the wrong shape of pasta, it's a disaster. So we have to teach them that it's not about the food, and they throw things because they're angry in that moment. But it sounds like you handled it. That sounds good.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to point out that we didn't handle it perfectly. We were mad. We were frustrated. And we maybe even said things, I don't remember exactly, that we didn't mean. But we repaired it. We noticed that we were stuck in stories. We slowed down. We took breaths. We all kind of calmed down together and got back to our intention and our goals as parents. And I think that's the whole point of this, Anna, none of us are perfect. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to get triggered. We're all imperfect humans. And it's the daily practice of noticing, becoming aware, and moving through those things and making, conscious choices and decisions is what it's all about.
And let's face it, little kids can be stinky and annoying, and and big kids too. And sometimes I say to myself, "Oh, I wish I could use my own services right now." Even though it's hard, it's not easy.
It isn't. It's so much easier to tell folks what they should do than to actually do it yourself.
Yes, word.
Yeah. So Anna, I would love to hear the story you have for us about you and Ella.
Oh boy, there is no one story. There is a series of stories, and it's all about the same topic, about the same thing. Sigh. My daughter does not have a phone. She's 11 and a half, and she wants an iPhone 11 Pro. And she wants it, man. And there is no negotiation. There is no single day that goes by that we do not have conversations, discussions that turn into battles about the damn phone. And it's just not easy. Some days, of course, she's a moody preteen girl. She slams the door, retreats to her room, and yells, "I am not loved in this family," exaggerating, of course, everything. "You guys don't love me. Every parent gives their children phones. You are the only ones. You are mean." So we hear this theme a lot. And it's hard not to get involved, not to yell back, not to say, "I'm not going to get you a phone." And the mistake that I made, I believe, which I can't erase, honestly, I wish I could, but we said, yes, maybe for Christmas, you will get a phone. Now, we didn't say you will get the most expensive, latest version, but we said maybe we will consider. And she made a story in her head that maybe means yes. And her 10-year-old friend is getting a phone as well. And she keeps saying, "That's not fair. Even she's getting a phone. Everybody has a phone." And of course, I don't like that argument. Everybody has a phone, so I deserve one too. And, she has an iPod Touch, which, of course, she uses daily. She does TikTok and talks to her friends and FaceTimes with her classmates and things like that. And she's pretty good. I have to say one thing. I hope my daughter doesn't listen to this because she will take advantage of this. She put screen time limit on her own device by herself because she wants to prove it to us that she's mature and responsible enough for a real phone.
Wow.
And the moment that her screen time, it's 1 hour per day, disappears, she's okay with that. She's dealing with this. And she doesn't spend much time. But my point is, I don't know. I'm a little confused myself as a parent. Why should I give my child a phone? I'm honestly speaking and expressing my thoughts right here, and maybe you can help me. Yes, everybody has a phone, but does it mean I have to get it for my kid too? No. What is she going to do with the phone? The same things as she does with her iPod Touch. And that is why I am inclined in thinking, then she doesn't need an expensive device, another phone line, another bill we have to pay, right? It's extra stuff. Does she deserve a phone? That's not a right. It's a luxury, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody has it, and her school doesn't allow phones. So what's the point of having this shiny device that you're not going to bring to school, that you're going to only use at home, and you already have a device that you use for those purposes? To me, when I spoke to her, she gave me 5 reasons why she needs a phone. I'm telling you, this has been this melodrama in our household. And my husband is an attorney. He is writing a contract for if and when we get the phone, she has to sign an official contract of the terms and conditions. That we have to, know her password, certain things. I'm sure when we have the contract, if my listeners are interested, I would be happy to share. And if my daughter decides to sign the contract, and if we decide to get a phone. But here is the thing. I use this, "I'll get you a phone for Christmas," as a threat many times. If my daughter is not quote unquote behaving, I'm like, "I'm not going to buy you a phone." And she has a big meltdown. And then we repair and everything is good. And I say, "Oh, it's okay, honey. Oh, I think we will get you a phone." So I went back and forth vacillating between this, I'm going to get you a phone and I'm not going to get you a phone. You don't deserve a phone, blah, blah, blah. And so I feel so bad about this. And she doesn't trust that we're going to get her a phone. And we're not so sure. And yesterday there was another argument at night, and they usually begin at night before bed. And she said, I know mom is not going to get me a phone. She told me until I am 15. That's too long to wait. And I was laughing in my mind. I'm like, oh God, what do we do? And my husband looks at me, goes, Anna, you go deal with this. I'm like, no, you deal with this. So this is what's going on. Do you have any thoughts? Shall I buy her a phone or no?
I don't, this is something that makes me so glad that my kids are so young, so I don't have to deal with this yet. Although, so my oldest is 7 and she has 8-year-old friends who do have phones. I understand that they're supposed to just use them to stay in contact with their parents, if they need to be picked up or that sort of thing.
Oh, don't give me that argument.
That's what their thing is. Yes, I know. No, I totally agree. And there's an agreement amongst some of the parents in my kids' school that we won't give phones until they're 13 too. I think the key thing here is not, just like you were saying, that this was not about the muffin, that this is not necessarily about the phone for either of you. I mean, I think this is an opportunity to learn, for her to learn to make well-reasoned arguments and engage in problem solving with her parents. I think that this would be a great opportunity for you guys to sit down and have a conversation about what are her pros about it and what are your worries about it, and make sure that that she understands the worries that you have. I think it might be really helpful for you to get super clear on why you're resistant to her having a phone, before that meeting, so that you can really clearly articulate it to her, and considering a range of possibilities and options for how she can go about getting her needs met, and you can go about getting your needs met or having your worries or concerns handled. You know what I mean?
Yes. And we had many conversations like this. Trust me, they're not the easiest of conversations.
No.
And for her, I know what it is. It's a status thing, because every child in her class already has a phone, and they have iPhone, I don't know, what, 10 XR. 10 XR. But because iPhone 11 is out and she never had a phone, so she wants the latest to show everyone that, hey, I have the latest version. This is a status thing, and I get that too, that they need to. But, oh gosh, this is difficult. I asked her, I said, why do you need a phone, right? We went over this. She's like, in case of emergency, I can call you. I said, in the 11 years that you have been my child, do you remember a time when you came close to an emergency? She's like, no. The bus picks you up from our home. The bus drops you here. Everybody has a phone. If you need to call me, you can call me. It's not like, wow, I have to reach you at all times. And here is an issue I have with parents having access to their children throughout the day in school. It's overwhelming for the child. It's disturbing for the child to pay attention in school, at class. Imagine a caring parent text the child on the day the child has a test or a quiz. Good luck, honey. And the child now is worried, right? An additional layer of worry. And then, how was your test? Mommy texts. And then, you know what I mean? Like, these are unnecessary little bits of communication. I think, first of all, parent doesn't need to know and be involved so much. Do your work if you are working. It's a distraction on both ends, in my opinion. And a friend of mine told me that, I have given my daughter an iWatch. She's in 7th grade. And my daughter texts me, Mom, I didn't like the lunch you packed for me. I didn't like this. I didn't like that. And I'm like, I don't want that kind of communication communicated to me. You know what I mean? It's nonsense. And it makes children focus on the mundane, make a big deal out of small matters that should be ignored. And so I feel like, I don't know. But if we buy a phone, I will let you know.
Okay.
So, I know this is a big challenge for everyone. So let's move on to our listener questions, as there are some questions about moody tweens.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. The first one is asking, do you have a podcast about pre-adolescent hormones? My daughter brings me all her feelings. This is great and hard. She directs it all at me.
I do not have podcast episodes. I was going to invite my daughter to the podcast, which we planned and it sort of didn't work out many times, to talk about tween years, navigating middle school, boys' relationships, body image, and things that like that. But what I can say is, yes, hormones are there. They kick in around age 8 or 9, even, right? Early. And children are moody, and middle schoolers, especially, are very sort of extremist. They take it like they blow up things. Like when we say, no, we're not buying you a phone, my daughter goes, I am not loved in this family. I think I rather go to boarding school. She dramatizes, catastrophizes everything. It's like always big. It's the estrogens, the hormones. And some days she's the sweetest kid. And I'm like, oh, yes, this is my kid. And some days it's so volatile. But my tips will be, do not take it personally, as hard as it sounds. It's not about us, even though they direct everything at us, like you're the meanest mommy, you're this, you're that. So do not respond to those comments as much as possible. It's not about us. They're just moody. It's hormones, it's growth, it's normal, it's development. Do not engage right away with their mood. Do not absorb their mood. Do not join them in their misery, because their moods are capricious. They change, from moment to moment. And avoid fights, basically. And when the things are good, take advantage of that and absorb the goodness and remind yourself that you have a good child. Everything is all right. Another thing I would say is just avoid shaming, guilting, judging, and saying, you're a bratty kid, look at you, you have everything, which is kind of hard to do when they give us a hard time in those moments. But I think it's best to remove yourself from the situation as a parent, which I often do, or let your child have space and calm down, and then you can repair and talk about things when the storm is over. Take care of yourself. Self-care is good. And of course, be in a right mindset. This is development. This is pre-adolescence. This is hormones. This is not my true child. It's just a phase. This is what I have to say about this question.
Yeah, I think that you really hit it on the head there. I think the only thing that I would add too is that I have found, my daughter is only 7, but she still comes to me with some problems and kind of brings her stuff on me. And we've been getting into the practice of asking her when she comes to us with a problem or wants to talk or unload some big emotions. We ask her up front, is this something that you want me to just listen to and be here for you? Is it something you want advice on? Or is this something that you want me to get involved in? And kind of having those 3 options open sets the tone for what I'm going to be hearing and lets me get into the right mindset, because most of the time she simply wants me to listen to her. And so I think that having those 3 questions available to you. Is this something that you want me to just listen to and hear you on? Is it something that you want advice on? Or is this something you want me to get involved in? Can be super helpful for kids this age. And then I think, just like with young kids, we talk so much about their brain and their developing brain and how it makes them impulsive and they can't control themselves. I think it's so important that we understand what's happening in the adolescent brain as well, and that they are still very self-centered, very self-focused, and they're bad decision makers. And they still don't have a lot of impulse control when it comes to verbal fighting. So the fight or flight response that they shift from hitting us, like they do when they're toddlers, to fighting verbally or socially. And so I think that that's really important to understand. And there's this great story about a mom and a conversation she has with her 11-and-a-half-year-old son that I'm going to share with you, that maybe we can put in the show notes, Anna, because I think it does a beautiful job of demonstrating how you can talk about these brain changes with your child and help them understand what's going on in their own body a little bit more, so that you can bring some compassion and grace to the scenario. Because even when they're saying harsh things like, I hate you, they are still mean, I hate you right now in this moment, because they're having a big feelings or a hard time, and they don't want to hurt you and they don't want to be disconnected from you, even when they are pushing you away.
Yes, yes, I agree. But it could be so difficult
Yes.
sometimes to be compassionate. I'm telling you, as a mom of a twin child, it's very difficult because eventually it gets you. You're calm and nice and understanding. And there comes a point where you're like, enough. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could exchange my child with 2 toddlers. Give me 2 toddlers, man. Take this middle schooler away from me. Some days are really, really challenging like that. So I sympathize with my listeners who have middle schoolers and moody twins. Hang in there. It's all going to be all right. Grasp on those moments that are good, and look at the baby photos and cherish the small, beautiful moments that happen throughout the day. There are plenty of those small moments.
Okay, so it looks like we have a question from a mom who has a 5-year-old who's in kindergarten, and it seems like he is resistant to practicing schoolwork at home or doing piano lessons. I think it was a really long question, so I'm just summarizing that even though now he doesn't have homework in kindergarten, he still seems resistant to trying to read with or practice numbers with his mom or practicing pianos. She's really worried because she wants him to practice these things at home, and she doesn't really know how to get his cooperation. And she says also that at school he listens and tries and catches on quickly, but at home he wants nothing to do with practice for anything. And she just wants some tips and suggestions.
Just FYI, when I was preparing for this episode this morning, I was chatting with my husband over coffee, and I'm like, today I have to record this episode with Laura, and we received some questions. I said, do you want me to read one of the questions? He's like, yeah, sure. So I read this question fully to him, and he goes, wow, sounds like us in our family. So, because we have a child who doesn't like practicing her piano as well, and so I totally resonate with this question. But I do have some things to say, but I really want you, Laura, to take a first stab at this.
Yeah, so I have a kind of a radical view on homework. So, as a person who, my dissertation was on early literacy acquisition for kids in the 3 to 5 range, and I really the overwhelming research out there in the education field is that homework has very little benefit for kids until 4th grade. And so I really don't know that homework is developmentally appropriate for children under 4th grade. We opt out of homework if my child doesn't want to do it. So luckily, we didn't really have much homework in kindergarten. And the homework that my daughter has now in 1st grade is math homework. And she likes doing it. She thinks it's fun. And so she does it happily. But we got a note home from her math teacher saying that this homework should never take the place of family time. It should never take the place of going outside to play. It should never take the place of where it's causing problems or conflict. And if it does, to just opt out. And so we had full permission from her teacher to opt out. And so that's, I mean, I think that it's important for parents to look at why they are feeling so tied to them completing the homework or the practice. What stories are they telling themselves? Are they saying, oh, he'll never learn to read, or he won't get any better at piano, or we're spending all this money on piano lessons and, we need to make it worthwhile? Like taking a look at those stories and about what is actually true versus kind of a fiction you've made up in your mind, and being super clear on what your goals are for your kid in doing this work, and being clear on what's developmentally appropriate too. So the homework one, I feel like I would just let go. And the kid spends all day in school. He should be able to relax and play when he's home. I feel really strongly about that. And I think too that when kids, especially certain types of temperament kids, when they feel pressure to do something from a parent, they dig their heels in and they won't do it. They feel backed into a corner, and the only option they really have is to resist. So if you know your kid is that type of personality, pushing on things is likely going to get you the opposite result of what you want them to do. So removing some pressure and relaxing around it can be really helpful, and relaxing your attitude around it too. Having a kind of a little bit of less invested in it. And with the piano piece, I think it's really, it says in her question that he asked to participate in this. He asked for piano lessons, which I think is great. He asked, and they put him in there. And I think that there's lots of people have ideas about commitment and practicing and getting their money's worth out of lessons. And I would just encourage this mom to ask herself, what is my goal with having my child in piano lessons? What do I want him to get out of it? Am I having any stories? Is anything from my past coming up for me? Like maybe there wasn't money for piano lessons when I was a kid and I really wanted them. Or maybe my parents were really strict and made me practice all of the time. And now I think that that's what I have to do for my kid. Just kind of taking a look at it about like why it seems like such a pressure-filled thing for her, I think would be good. But this is also coming from a person whose daughter begged and begged for violin lessons and took them for a while and loved it, but didn't want to practice. And so we let her quit because she didn't want to practice. And so, I don't know. That's a little bit of a personal bias for me because I'm not sure that. Well, anyway, yeah, go ahead. I would love to know your thoughts too. And it's okay if they're different.
Yeah, I have an 11-year-old. She's been taking piano since she was 5 years old, actually. And I have never met anyone, including children who like piano and music or, this kind of instruments. They take instruments lessons, who love to practice. I think practice is the hardest part. And my daughter wants to get it always right. So for her practicing, when she doesn't get it right, she gets discouraged and she doesn't want to continue practicing. And I tell her that, sometimes like telling her that practice is not going to be perfect. Practice means you're going to stumble. You're not going to know very well. And it's boring and tedious, but eventually you're going to see a result. But that kind of conversation you can have with an older kid, 5-year-old, is not going to like that. Sometimes it's okay for parents to push their children just a little bit to commit to a piano or a sport. But if we're pushing too much, I think that's going to backfire. You know what I mean?
I agree.
But I also don't want to raise children who want to quit when it's difficult. I don't want to raise that kind of kid. But again, it's very personal. You need to know your child, your family dynamic. And like in your case, I want your child to know that your child can pick up violin at any time in her life. It doesn't have to be now. It could be in 3 years, right?
Yeah, and I totally didn't give very much context either about this. So she's in a dance class that she loves, but takes a lot of effort in mental space. And then she's also in gymnastics. And 3, her magic number for activities is 2. And 3 was too much. And so it wasn't just that she was wanting to not practice. It was that she didn't feel like she had enough time to play at home after school. And so it was kind of this thing. And she said, well, when I'm older, I'll probably will want to practice more and then I can try again. And so, it wasn't something like, she was giving up because it was hard. It was she was making a conscious choice about balance in her life. And that was something that we were really proud of her making a decision because she loved playing the violin and she was quite good at it, like picked it up very fast. But it just wasn't a good balance for her at this point in time.
Yes. Thanks for clarifying that.
Sorry. Yeah.
And, I asked my daughter very directly. I said, do you want to continue with piano? Because it has to come from you. Music is something that you have to enjoy. I don't want to force it upon you. You don't have to do this. And she's like, no, I really enjoy it, Mommy. I love my teacher. I like the music. I'm making progress. She has the big picture in her mind and it's appropriate. But when it comes to daily practice, Sadly, I don't have any winning tips, except there is a lot of reminders. There some days when we have to let it go. It is what it is. But in this case, this child is 5. What I sense from reading this question is this mom is worried that this will be a character trait for him, that he will not stick to anything. And I just want to say, reassure this mom that don't catastrophize. Just because he's not practicing doesn't mean he's not going to be a persistent, dedicated, hardworking kid in the future. Let this not be, like a fatal decision or judgment, evaluation on your part. Look for things that your child already does that convey the message that he is persistent. For example, does he start a project and finish something that he enjoys? It could be a playtime, it could be a Lego structure. If you see those kind of traits in him, the skills that he's applying already, then you should be comforted to know that, yes, he does have the skills of hard work, persistence, paying attention when he intrinsically is motivated to do so. When we control our children from outside, we kill the intrinsic motivation, sadly, for them to do the things for the pleasure of it. I think lessen the control, increase the autonomy in this case. Maybe make some kind of agreement with your child, a visual calendar of daily practices. How many times do you think you can practice per week, daily? And give him that autonomy when he can practice. Do you want to do it before dinner or right, whatever? Let the child be in charge of the practice itself, however it may look. I think encouraging this autonomy and taking responsibility for the task is more important than consistently practicing daily. I mean, it sounds like this kid is very smart already, and he loves music and he practices and he says that I am good, mommy. So I think relax, mom. Even if he's not, meeting your standards, I think musical instruments, from what I know from psychology and development, Laura, it is when we engage our children younger in instrument learning activities, the benefit is not great. I think instrument learning, when it happens after the age of 7, the progress is the same as if your child took piano lessons from age 5 to 7. After age 7, they learn faster. Their brain develops, it's a whole new development. And so, like in the Soviet Union, all, instrument lessons and music lessons were begin after age 7, which I think is more appropriate. So when we engage our children young in those kind of activities, our expectations are high, but it's not developmentally so appropriate. So we're going to face frustrations. That's what I would say. Lessen your control, pushing him, controlling him, which we do it in this household too. My husband more so than I. I'm a little more lenient, and give autonomy and let him be in charge of that practice. And it's okay. This is not the end of the world. And good luck.
Yes. Yeah. So here's our next question. This is a mom who's writing, who has an 8-year-old who is embarrassed to give hugs. She says, at what age did your child start getting embarrassed when you would say, I love you, before leaving them at school or childcare? My daughter is 8, and this morning she looked so embarrassed in front of her friends. Is there something else you would say that has meaning between you and your child that means I love you without her friends knowing? Interesting
question. I have to say that my daughter has not stopped wanting hugs and kisses and things of this nature. I don't think there's a particular age for this. What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I never experienced that in my own life as a kid. I always wanted to hang out with my parents and have hugs and stuff from them. And my dad was even a high school, he was a teacher in my high school. And we hugged every morning when I came into class, he was my teacher. So I don't know that all kids go through this, but I would be inclined to find out what's going on with my with my daughter. So I think I would find a time where we can have a nice, calm, connected conversation, like maybe taking her out for a hot chocolate date, and just say something kind of like non-blamey or, not pressure filled. Just like, I noticed that I maybe have been accidentally embarrassing you recently in front of your friends. And I just want to find out more about that, just kind of like a soft lob into the daughter's court. So you can find out a little bit more about what's going on. And in this conversation, the very first part of what you should be doing is just listening and validating what she's saying. Oh yeah, I can see how that would be hard, or if she says something like, oh, you're just so embarrassing, or you're all over me, it can be easy to say, well, I don't really hug you that much, and kind of negate what she's saying. You really need to stick with her and just validate what she's saying, whether or not it's actually true or you perceive it as true. You have to understand that it's her truth and really understand what's going on for her. And then let her know that you would still like to be able to express your love and gratitude for her and having her as your daughter. And you'd like to find a way that you could express that that's not embarrassing for her or that doesn't cause her kind of social discomfort. And brainstorm with her. She probably has some really great ideas about how to go about that. So I don't think maybe there is a phrase that you could say to her that would be like your secret I love you phrase. But I think she's the one who will know if that's going to work for her and what that phrase should be. I think that should be a mutual conversation.
Yes,
I guess those are my thoughts.
I agree. And I support what you said. Yeah. Having a conversation and asking what's happening and having her tell her mom how she wants to say goodbye and how the goodbyes should look like. And also maybe somebody made fun of her. Maybe is there a real reason behind this, right? Did somebody say something about her mom, the way her mom was dressed? Is she embarrassed for her mom? Like I know my daughter says, Mom, all my friends think you are cool. You are hip. You are this.
That must be nice.
Well, I don't know, but children talk, you know what I mean? Children talk and they pass judgments. And she's like, Mom, my friends think you look young for your age and you have red glasses and you're hip and you wear Vans. And she says those things like children pick on little things. And I don't know, maybe nobody said anything to this kid. This child is just maybe sees other parents not giving kisses and goodbyes. And she thinks she's the weird one because her mom loves her. You know what I mean? Children are a little weird at this age. So talk to your daughter and see what's going on.
Yeah. And I think the point is, Anna, that we don't know. And so like any of those things might be going on, or it might be like something completely different. Like maybe she was touched out that morning and didn't want to hug, or, we have no idea. And so coming in with an open-ended question without any of our assumptions, without any, you don't have to give her like, well, did someone make fun of you? Or did someone make fun of me? You don't have to go in with any of those guesses of yours. Keep those guesses quiet. If you need to, if you need to brain dump all your worries, dump them out into a notebook. Don't dump them on your daughter, and let her, have it totally open-ended and just say, what's up? What's up?
I completely agree. When I say it could be happening, I'm not.
No. I know what you're saying. Totally. But I also know that as a mom, it can be hard to get wrapped up in all of your worries and you want to just reassure yourself and all of those things. Cause God, we don't want our kids made fun of and we don't want to be made fun of either. And all, it's just, I just wanted to make sure that we know that an open-ended question is going to get you way more information rather than kind of giving them what you think is going on.
And again, I would give the same advice as I gave to the other mom about not catastrophizing, fatalizing this. This is not the end of the era. Your daughter, she says, at what age your children stop doing this? I want her to know that this is not an age. Don't give up. That's what I want to say. This is not an end of a phase. It just could be a day or so or something going on. Don't assume this is going to end now and you give up and you
And
know?
it's just over and she's never going to get a
Yeah.
hug from her daughter again. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's normal as children enter late childhood and early adolescence, the separation process gets started. Kids know that they're supposed to be separating from their attachment figures. And it's not that the attachment figure or the attachment relationship isn't there anymore. It's that it shifts and changes.
Mhm.
And they know that, they instinctually at an animal level know that they are supposed to start to separating, but they can only do so when they're confident that when they turn around you're still right there. And so she's always going to need to know that you love her. Always,
Mm.
forever. She's always going to need to know that. It just might look different at different developmental stages about how you express it and how she expresses it to you too.
Yeah, maybe that day, sometimes children do this too. They want to feel grown up, and they
Mm-hmm.
think by pushing their moms and not getting a kiss and a hug in front of everyone, that's so mature and grown up, Maybe she's trying to show her friends. It could be so many things like that. I want
Yeah.
to recommend a book that is maybe a little too early for this age, but it's a really good read. Hold On to Your Kids, written by
Mm,
Neufeld and Gabor Mate. An excellent book. I've
I
read it
love that book. Yeah.
years ago, but this is a good read for adolescent parents.
Yeah,
Just
there's another book too that I was going to share in my recommendations, my resources, but I can share it now since it applies so much. But it's called Mothering and Daughtering by Eliza and Sil Reynolds. It's a lovely book that's specifically written for mothers and daughters. I think it'd be a great option for this mom and for the mom with the hormonal 11, preteen too. Yeah. I mean,
I'll check out too. It sounds like a good book. Yeah.
yeah, it's called Mothering and Daughtering, Keeping Your Bond Strong Through the Teen Years.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And we all need that. How about we move on to our last question, which is from a frustrated mom again about her ex, about co-parenting.
Yeah. Okay. So she says, I hate Tuesdays. It's when my son gets back from my ex's and I pick him up from his house after his dad dropped him off at school. And he always leaves something at his dad's house. And I'm so tired of it. Last weekend, they lost his water bottle. And it just feels like his dad never cares about getting him his lunchbox or book bags or clothes, but he is a professional at never returning them or losing them. And I'm losing my stuff over it right now because I work 4 jobs and manage to pick up my son 4 times a week and drop him off at school 3 times a week and have him all the Saturdays and buy all the stuff for him. And I don't buy it so that my ex can keep it.
Oh,
So she
boy.
sounds really frustrated.
Yes.
I'd
Yeah.
love to know what your thoughts are on this one.
Oh God, working, I teach co-parenting classes. I work
Mhm.
with people who go through this. This is not easy. Sadly, there's not much she can do to influence him, how he parents, what he does. He's not going to be receptive unless they go to a co-parenting session and try to figure out ways, which sounds like this guy will not even go. I feel bad for this mom. And she says that she purchases really high end, good quality Pottery Barn lunchbox and things like that. My first advice would be don't spend too much money knowing the history. If it gets lost, it never comes back. Do not buy expensive things. That then you're not so worried. Have an agreement with this man if you talk to him, if there is communication at all, that like dad can have his own things, mom can have her own things for the boy in terms of toys that always stay at dad's house, toys that always stay at mom's house, pajamas that always stay at dad's house, and clothing that stays always at mom's house. You know what I mean? Yes, it's going to be lost and mixed, and sometimes things don't come back. And I can sense a lot of anger towards this ex from this woman because of the past history. Because as we mentioned, it's not about the muffin, it's not about the phone, and this is not about the lost water bottle. There is a lot of bottled up emotions and things that trigger her in the moment when he does this kind of irresponsible act, right? I think I don't have many suggestions, except hopefully they can work things out among themselves without any judgment and blame, and have a mutual goal and have an agreement that or a reminder, hey, if something comes to your house, can I have it back, please? Or just put a note in your child's backpack, or send him a phone reminder or something of that nature that is not very blamey, judgy. It's very neutral. Just a reminder, our son left his lunchbox at your place. Can you send it back on Tuesday when he comes? Or engage your son also. If the dad is very distracted, preoccupied, or not caring, or not responsible, or maybe he does it on purpose to annoy the mom, I don't know. Engage your son. Let your son be responsible for his own belongings too. Right? Say, sweetheart, whatever goes has to come back, and help your son remember what are those things that you expect your son to bring back. I think that has to be clearly communicated to the child too. And the child in this case, I think, is 6 years old. He's young, but he has to be responsible for his own things. And, you can avoid a lot of conflict by doing that. But I think mom has to deal with her own past issues, against this man. This is not about just the water bottle,
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a great idea to help the kid be more responsible in moving back and forth. I think in having that conversation, it would be really important for this mom to keep any of her feelings about her ex out of that conversation. And make sure that she is filtering really well in how she's talking about her ex to her son, because this man, even though he's her ex, he's still her son's dad. And so, if you're saying like, well, I'm going to give you a list of the things you need to bring back because your dad isn't responsible enough to make sure you bring them back. Like, that's not exactly what we're going for here. So,
yes.
And so keep the negative comments. I mean, have a girlfriend you can vent to, have a therapist you can say those things to. Make sure you're not saying them to your kid, because that's what makes a kid feel caught in the middle and like they have to pick sides. And that is what we know is not so great for kids about divorce and separation and co-parenting. So I love the idea of having like a picture-based checklist or a word-based if he's reading consistently, so that every time he goes, he brings a certain set number of things and then he can check them off as he's repacking to come back to mom's. I think that would be a good solution. You could also have a little one of those little small spiral bound notebooks where each week you write down what he has packed in his bag so that he knows what to bring back. But I agree completely. Like he can have a lunchbox at dad's house. He can have, a water bottle at dad's house that can stay there, so that there isn't as much shuttling of things back and forth, so that what he has to take back and forth is really just the essentials.
Yes. After reading this question, I mean, I feel like this woman is searching for justice, because she says, I'm working for jobs, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And she juxtaposes what the ex is not doing and being irresponsible, right? So obviously we can hear the injustice, the anger that she has towards him. And
and at this time she's got to step into where her power is. She has no power to influence what her ex is doing. She only has the power on her own behaviors. And so, like you said, don't send the nice Pottery Barn lunchbox with him on dad days. Send the cheap one from a thrift store, and if it gets lost.
Even that, not even a lunchbox, a brown paper bag. The days that your child is going to the dad's house, sent in a reusable or something that you don't care if it comes back or not, or it could be trashed. You can avoid so much frustration because you can never change this man and his patterns. And this is the reason they are divorced, because there is a lot of this differences and conflicts. And sometimes in high conflict relationships like this, it's best to take care of what you can, and not want to change and engage the other party. Do what you can on your end, and things become a lot calmer. From my experience working with exes and co-parents and things like that. But I would highly also recommend a co-parenting session. It's very helpful, at least the work that I do with my clients. In the beginning, it's not as helpful when they first come. Sometimes
resistance.
Oh my gosh. I have this saying that I had two clients, let's call them Scott and Stephanie. And I always say, if I could work with Scott and Stephanie and make that couple co-parent effectively, I can help anyone. It was the most difficult couple I have ever met, who did not want to be in the same room. But after several trials, we made progress. I mean, yes, your ex is your ex, but once upon a time, you used to be married and loved each other perhaps, and made love and have a child together. I am a firm believer that there is always, we can find ways to influence, work together, but a third party needs to be involved. Doing this on your own is not going to work. Work on yourself, on your own resentment and anger on the side. Just because you're working for jobs, it's not his fault, right? Maybe he's not giving you enough child support. That's a whole different story. That's all I have to say about this. I mean, I can go on and on. This is a very heated topic.
Yeah. Right. And just make sure that the third party is not your child.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
And don't send passive aggressive, like snarky comments. Your dad, again, you left it, huh? You know, sometimes parents, I hear they're like, oh, I keep my child out of it. But I said this, do you think that's helpful? I'm like, no, that's totally passive aggressive, you know, about the other party. So yeah, it's not your child's fault. But definitely you can make the child more responsible in this case. I think that's the best solution.
Yeah. Great.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. So was that our last question, I think?
Yes, that was our last question. And this is the last episode of 2019 that we do together. I hope you can join me back in 2020 and we can do many more episodes together. I just want to remind our listeners that they can submit their questions by email, info@authenticparenting.com, or better yet, a voicemail, which we haven't received in ages. Come on, people, send us your voicemail questions. We want to hear how you sound. It's not fair. You hear our voices every month. You hear my voice every week. I want to hear how you sound. You don't have to be perfect. Don't be so self-conscious. If you have a question, chances are other parents struggle with the same challenge as well. So call me today at 732-763-2576. We compile all the questions and we pick and choose for that specific month. With that said, Laura, thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me today and doing this episode. As always, it's a blast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I love getting to chat with you. And it's so nice too, as a mom of younger kids, to hear kind of what the future holds for me and to start being more conscious and thinking about it. So I really appreciate you for bringing that perspective to me and to your listeners.
Okay. Save money for an iPhone.
Right. They're so expensive. Start saving now.
Okay. Happy holidays.
You too. Bye-bye.